Hello and welcome, hello and welcome, hello and welcome to Prague Chattery 777. My light is getting darker and it's appropriate because we have reached the fourth or third album by Graaf Generator. This is Pawn Hearts. I think in the last video I was talking about how H to HE it's the culmination of their sound. They found their sound, but it wasn't a classic album yet. This is a classic album. This is an absolutely stunning album. Only 3 songs on it. The original Canadian release, and American release I should say, included Theme 1, which was theme music for a BBC radio show that the band did. Kind of glad on all these remasters they didn't include that, because it's a cool kind of B track, but it isn't... it doesn't really fit with the rest of the album, I don't think. But yeah, it is dark, it is long, it is meandering, it is a progressive classic. I mean, not only if you're looking to get into Graaf Generator, but if you're looking to get into classic 70s prog, I think this is absolutely essential. This is it's a scary album. There's just so much going on here. Really cool cover too, like the whole illusory sort of a fake sky draped across the earth with all these pawn hearts. Funny thing with the title, apparently David Jackson, sax player, was very tired when they were recording, and he went to sing and record some horn parts, and he said porn hearts, which became pawn hats. Pawn hearts. Really cool title. No idea what it means, but it's cool. Kind of fits the theme of the album. Just darkness and conspiracy and revolution. It's got a very interesting inner sleeve too. This was a game that apparently the band made up. I have no idea how it was played, but the microwave's gone off. That's exciting. But yeah, there's David Jackson. He's holding a ball, and these people are giving an awkward salute. Very awkward salute. And they're standing on a table, and it's got very cool sort of offset colors and such. So yeah, great packaging. But what about the music itself, you ask? Well, I think it is... I should say, this is the first... Killer was the first Graaf Generator song I ever listened to. This was the first album that I put on and listened to front to back. And it opens with Lemmings, which is a 12-minute tour de force of... I mean, it's... You know, talk about finding their sound in the last album. This is just exploiting it to the absolute most intense level they could. It is absolutely intense. It's so dense, and there's so many changes in it, and it's epic, and it's dissonant, and it's scary, and it's just incredible. I've dissected the lyrics many times for Lemmings. I don't really quite know what it's about. Feels like it's like a call to arms or something, or you know, the world is filled with all this war and dread and fear and such, but we have the choice. We can either be a lemming and let it happen, or we can band together and see what happens. Revolution. They're called the Revolution. I'm trying to think, one of my favorite lyrics of all Graaf Generator and solo is the final verse of Lemmings. Look to the why and where we are, look to yourself in the stars. Yes, and in the end, what choice is there but to live? So there's a lot of darkness, on this album, but it's uplifting as well. Like Lemmings, for example, the first 2 verses you get, what choice is there left but to die, and then, you know, the end is the resolution and the looking beyond the darkness and seeing that there is always hope. Something like that. I told you I'm not an actual reviewer. I'm just spitballing stuff off the top of my head. Middle section of this song, Cog, I believe is what it's called, that oh, that's a great part. Great, that's a classic piece of David Jackson madness right there. Oh, it's just such a good song, and the way it opens, the acoustic guitar, you know, it almost sounds like it's going to be folky, and the organ washes in, and it's just such a good song. Go out and listen to Lemmings right now. Stop the video and find Lemmings. Buy the album and listen to Lemmings. It's very good. It is just absolutely stunning. And yeah, the end of the Lemmings is really good too. After the verse, and it kind of it turns into this kind of improv-y bit where it's very quiet and creepy and dynamic, and the whole band's playing, but you're kind of peering around the room, like where are they playing from? Something like that. Really good. I think I've made my point. The next song is Man-Erg. This might be their flagship song. I think they must have played it at every concert since this album was released. Um, Really cool. It's kind of starts like a piano ballad. First two verses introduce the Killers and the Angels, and how they all live within us. The final verse is the resolution of we are all man, and the best we can do is be. I guess that's what it is. Great madness section in the middle. Absolutely insane. Insane. So intense. And Hamill's wailing, "How can I be free?" Oh, he certainly had found his voice. His vocal capabilities were firmly within his grasp at this point, and the result is just stunning. A lot of studio trickery going on here. Very detailed and experimental. A lot like experimenting with tape loops, and it's kind of you'll never be able to reproduce this live, and the band knew that. In fact, the band broke up very shortly after this record. I don't think specifically because they weren't able to reproduce the sound, but it was just the madness of touring and the fact that, you know, they did it. They sought out, they did what they sought out to do with this. There's nowhere left to go. Anyway, before we get too distracted with storyline and whatnot, the final track on the album takes up the entire second side. A year before Supper's Ready. Supper's Ready by Genesis, usually considered the side-long, like the main thing as far as classic side-long 20-minute prog epics go. But I think it's Plague of Lighthouse Keepers, side 2 of Pawn Hearts. It is terrifying. It is so dark and moody, and I mean, again, it's got all the madness sections in there, all that studio experimentation is in there. Like one of the early sections. I don't know the subsection titles that well. Maybe they're on the no, they're not on the album. Oh well. But where Hugh Banton is doing the impersonating the ship out in the water. It's kind of soundscape section. Really awesome stuff. And then the intro ballad kind of comes back, and it's just moody. And then after the first kind of section, I guess it's 3 sections on the track listing, but about 7 minutes in, it just kind of kicks off and it meanders into its own world. It's got some of the best bits of madness the band ever did. Right around the end, I think Custard's Last Stand, I think it's called. It's just absolutely crazy. It's insane. And I'm sure, you know, at the time, hearing this band would have been mind-blowing. I mean, heck, my mind was blown when I first heard Graaf Generator back in 2006, 2007. I'd never heard anything like it. And a lot of it had to do with that song, Plague of Lighthouse Keepers. Again, the darkness is just, you can't be understated. I mean, the one line, "Would you cry if I died?" It's just so black, it seems. But like the rest of the album, it all winds up, after the last big Custard Stand madness section, it winds up into a really uplifting finale. And the story is kind of ambiguous, you know, it could be, it's evidently about a lighthouse keeper, and either he's up in his lighthouse, he's contemplating all of his life and all of the people he could have saved and all the people he was unable to save, and I guess the end, he either jumps out of the lighthouse and commits suicide and finds peace in that, or he finds peace without jumping. I'm probably going way too literal. I mean, these are very open-ended lyrics, obviously. I guess that's kind of how my interpretation is. I'm sure other people have interpreted it differently. But, yeah, as with most good lyrics, particularly Hamill's lyrics, there's many meanings to these songs. And it all depends on you, the listener, really. But yeah, Lighthouse Keepers is an absolute statement. Yeah. And I think it's partially why the band broke up after this is because after you've made a record like this that is just there's only 3 songs and 3 of them are all classics. This whole album has been played all the way up until 2013, the last time the band was touring, and they have played this entire album live. So that just goes to show you. I mean, this is the original Van der Graaf generation, 1971. It's so strong. It is an absolute classic. I think I've made my point, but I'll continue to make my point. It is so freaking awesome. Good enough to blow the band up, really. There was going to be a follow-up, interestingly enough. They did put work into a follow-up. Unfortunately, the band having split up, Hamill put the songs that they were working on onto his solo albums. The first one called In the Black Room, which was on Chameleon in the Shadow of the Night, Peter Hamill's second solo album. And the other one was A Louse Is Not a Home, which was on The Silent Corner and The Empty Stage. And that kind of gives you an idea of what the next album could have been. That could have been one side of it. And those songs are very dark as well. Again, themes of isolation, mental instability, perhaps, in the case of Louse Is Not a Home. That's we're not reviewing those albums. I'm mentioning those songs because of, it's the follow-up that may have been. Probably a good thing that there wasn't a follow-up because, as the way things happened, we got 4 really, really, really good Van der Graaf albums in the 1970s later on, 3 years from the release of this. And we're going to talk about those later, but for now I'll leave you with that. There it is, the first generation of Van der Graaf generator. And that is, been talking about Pawn Hearts today. Personal favorite of mine. You have to check it out if you're remotely interested in any progressive music. If you're remotely interested in the Van der Graaf generator, you have to pick this album up. It is essential. Cannot be understated. All right, thank you very much. Thank you for tolerating my dying light. It's appropriate, I suppose, with these albums. And I will catch up with you guys very soon. We're going to talk about more Van der Graaf. We're going to catch it up with God Bluff and head deep into the 70s, the classic period. All right, until then, we'll see you later.